into what we're covering today, and what we're covering today is the importance of taking action. Now, this is a pretty broad topic, but we're going to narrow it down as we go. But as the title says, the importance of taking action. Now, why is that important? And why is it important at all? It's important because if we're not taking action, we're staying in the same position. And if we're staying in the same position, we're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're not really reaching our true fulfillment, because, all of us as humans have a need to grow. We have a need to be stretched. Whether we know it or not, consciously or not, we do. We need to grow in some way, shape or form. And so if we're not moving forward, if we're not taking action, we're not growing, which means we're in a stuck position in our life. And that's a very, very challenging position to be in, right? You might have experienced it with different things in the past, or perhaps you're experiencing it now where you've got a feeling of like you're stuck, like you don't know how to move past what's holding you back. Maybe you don't know what's holding you back, or you don't know the next best step to take in order to move through, right? And that's a very challenging position to be in. So taking action is so very important for all those reasons that I just mentioned. And as I said, for things in our life to change, we've got to make changes in our life, right? So if we're not someone who's inclined to take action, we've got to flip the scale and start taking action. That's making changes in our life. And in order to have a new life, we have to make new decisions. So if we're not someone who's been inclined to take action in the past, then a lot of things wouldn't have changed in our life. Whereas if we want to have a new life, we've got to make a new decision. And that all comes from action, right? Action, action, action. That is the word we're covering today, right? And so what prevents action? Let's start with that. What actually prevents action? Well, obviously procrastination prevents action, but what's underlying procrastination? What's beneath that? Basically put, it's fear, right? The only reason we wouldn't take action is we're procrastinating because we don't actually know something. We lack direction, but underneath that as well is fear. We're afraid to take action for whatever kind of reason. Whether it's fear of failure, we're worried to actually fail. Fear of judgment, we're worried what someone else might think about action taking. Or for any other reason, any other self-sabotaging measure, right? And so how to take action in the space of fear is what we're going to cover in depth today, because this is what's so very important. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to have fear, right? Fear is such a natural thing. It's a natural phenomenon, right? It's actually our body's way of protecting us. Because when we have fear, like from a physiological standpoint, like our heart rate will go up, like, we might even get sweaty, or we might, there's lots of different responses that we have to fear. And there's a reason for it. Our body's actually trying to protect us. So fear is not a bad thing. It's actually a very positive thing. What matters most, and what matters most in terms of taking action amongst this fear, is the stories we're telling ourselves and the meanings we're giving and deriving from what's happening. This is everything, guys. The meaning we're giving to what's happening, it changes everything. Because we could have two different individuals. We could have individual A and individual B, and they could have the same exact experience, but have given it completely two different meanings. And one individual's stuck, another person's taking action. Now, how does that happen? Well, it all comes down to the meaning that we're giving to things, right? And we can give very positive meanings, and can give very negative meanings. And it depends, on the meaning we give it really dictates the result that we get, right? And so in terms of the story we're giving it, and, in terms of the meaning we're giving to it, this is where it becomes so very key. So for instance, we might encounter a challenge in our life, and we might be saying straight away, this is going to be extremely hard. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really difficult. I'm going to hate it. And this is the meaning we're giving to it, right? We've given it that meaning, and so it is going to be hard. It is going to be difficult. And will we take action on that? Probably not. If it's something that we deem to be hard, probably not. Whereas if we take that same scenario, give it a different meaning, And let's say we say, one that a personal mantra I use for many different things and still do is, this is easy, this is simple, this is fun. This is easy, this is simple, this is fun. And now automatically we've got person A saying, well, this is going to be extremely hard and difficult. And person B is saying, this is easy, this is simple, this is fun. Well, who do you think is going to take the more action? Person B, right? Because they've changed the meaning to be an empowering meaning. And when we have an empowering meaning and an empowering story behind it and through it, that's when we're inclined to take action. We're not going to take action if we're, giving it a meaning that this is really hard and I'm not going to enjoy this. We don't want to move as humans. We don't want to move towards pain. We don't want to move towards difficulty. So if there's difficulty and pain in the mix, that's when we're going to procrastinate, because that's one of our defense mechanisms for not wanting to do something that we don't enjoy or that's difficult, right? And so that it all links back to procrastination in the end as well. So I hope this is making sense to you guys. The meaning we give to things is absolutely paramount. It's going to decide who takes action from who doesn't, right? And another thing we can do is we can change the meaning to be outside of ourselves. Again, very powerful, very powerful. And this is another one that I use very, very often. So let's take an example, for instance, of those of you who are afraid to, let's say, jump on a Facebook Live. You're afraid to jump on a Facebook Live, right? Used to be a story and a meaning for me once upon a time. Or you're afraid to speak in front of people. Used to be a story for me once upon a time as well, and a meaning I gave it as well. Now, in terms of jumping on a Facebook Live or speaking in front of people, let's say that you change the meaning and you change the story to be, this isn't actually about me and my betterment. This isn't about me and what it's going to do for me. This is about what it's going to do for everyone else. It's like, wow, hang on a second. I've just changed this to be right outside of myself. Now, if you do this correctly, you're actually going to experience a decrease in resistance and an increase in action taking. And why is that? Because you've removed yourself from the equation, right? It's not that you're ignoring your emotions, it's that you're switching the way that you look at everything, and you're switching to be dissociated from what's holding you back and associated into why you're doing what you're doing. And it's because of other people, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want to help people. We all want to feel like we've made a difference in someone's life. So if you phrase it as, look, it's not about me, it's about who I can help, it's about who I can serve, it's about everyone else, you're going to take action way quicker. And your fear is actually going to be diluted massively. And if your fear is diluted, you're going to take action. You're going to move away from procrastination and towards motivation and towards action. So I've given you two examples of, if you have the meaning that's derived from yourself, you can change the meaning to be very empowering, or you can switch it outside of yourself, dissociate yourself from your fear, associate yourself in your mission. And that's the power of this stuff. It's incredible, guys. You can even say, thoughts are just thoughts. Thoughts are just thoughts. They're natural. It's natural to have thoughts. But again, it's what you do with those thoughts that makes all the difference in the world. So the meaning you give to those thoughts is going to dictate what ends up happening from that point on, right? And so it's so very important that you label thoughts as thoughts and realize that not all thoughts are your own thoughts. Not all thoughts are correct, but the thoughts that you say are correct. And the thoughts that you give meaning to hold meaning in your life, right? And so the same is true for emotions. You can say emotions are emotions, and emotions are really just energy going through your body that can be welcomed and embraced, right? And if you're experiencing a negative emotion, they can be dismissed. So it actually works both ways. It's really incredible how it works. So that's how you can do it from a thought standpoint or an emotion standpoint. And let's go through another one. Let's go through fear of judgment, fear of criticism, right? So if someone's criticizing you, I want you to think about this in a whole new different light, right? A whole new different light. And this may surprise some of you, but it makes perfect logical sense if you think about it. Now, if someone's criticizing you or saying something to you that's a critical statement, that in and of itself means that individual is actually giving you their energy, which is a great thing, because it means they care more than not, if you think about it. Because if they didn't care, why would they be even opening their mouth to say anything at all? It's an interesting one, isn't it? But if you really think about it, you can really just say, oh, well, if someone criticizes you, oh, this person thinks, they think enough of me to actually give me their energy. You could say, I actually like that, right? I like that. And why else would someone give you their focus? As I said, we're not going to give someone our focus if it doesn't mean something to us. So even if someone's giving you what you think to be a negative meaning or a negative statement, chances are, if you dig a little deeper underneath that, there's a reason for why they're saying what they're saying. And it could be for a number of different reasons. Maybe they're jealous. They're still giving you their energy, which means you still matter enough in their life for them to be able to give you their time. So look, those are many different examples of how we can reframe things in a positive way to suit our life and to suit our goals and to move us further to action or close to action. So this is the power of this stuff, guys. Like, this isn't made up. And it's not rocket science. It makes perfect sense. It's just a matter of realizing that you're in control of the meaning you give to things. And that works in two different ways, right? Once you realize that you're in control, you can't escape that fact. So you've got to live into that and realize that you are in control. You've got to take ownership of that fact, right? And so I'm actually going to give you, at the end of, at this live, over the next 24 hours as well, I'm going to give you a really, really powerful written out strategy that I'm going to store in the group. It's actually going to be stored in the resources section, so you can continue to tap into this, because I want you guys to take action and get results. I'm gonna put it step by step in the group, so you guys can refer to this. But we're quickly going to jump through just the basics of how to build in new frames of mind. So how do we actually, right? So, a lot of us have experienced a lot of things in our life, but how do we actually build new frames of mind so that we can derive positive meaning from things, right? Well, I'm going to give you some steps straight away. So we want to, first of all, step one, we want to start with the present situation. So we want to think of the problem that you want to deal with, right? So maybe it's, fear of failure. Maybe it's just fear in general. So we're going to think of that to begin with, right? And then from there, we're going to set a desired outcome for step number two. So what do you actually want specifically? What do you want to have? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? We want to get specific on that, and we want to step into a desired outcome, right? So that you really feel connected to it. So we want to associate into it. We want to see ourselves in the picture, really associate into that, right? And then we want to ask ourselves, why do we want the desired outcome? So this is the intention. For what purpose do we want this? What's the highest intention of wanting this outcome? Because if we can't connect the intention to it, we're not going to be able to connect our behavior, which is your action taking, to that either, right? So this is really important to get to the intention. And then once we've got to the intention, we want to actually figure out, well, do we know what to do to take the action? This is so very important too. What are the steps, right? What are the stages? As we spoke about last week, chunking it down into bite-sized chunks so we can actually take action. So we're not looking at the whole picture. We're looking at a very small piece. But by doing that small piece, we've actually taken action. We've moved towards our goals more than not. And so we've actually moved away from procrastination and towards motivation, right? And then we need to find out from a resource standpoint, well, what resources do we need? And what's the single-handedly most important frame of mind that we need to hold to accomplish that goal, right? So if we're holding on to a meaning of this is going to be difficult, well, that's not a frame of mind that's going to serve us in getting most goals, right? So what frame of mind is single-handedly the most important? And then what values and beliefs are important as well alongside that? And what attitudes as well. So that's very important as well. Okay, and then moving on, so how do we build in new frames of mind from here? Well, there are a few specific ways. The most powerful ways that I know of personally, and some of the most powerful ways in the world would be 100% hypnosis and NLP would be two ways to get towards creating new frames of mind, because frames of mind they're built from our values and our beliefs and our thoughts. All of that factors in. But one thing that you can do straight away is you can actually meditate. You can actually meditate towards that. And while you're meditating, you can actually say some simple things to yourself into your unconscious mind. You can say, for instance, like a statement like, I give myself permission to blank, I give myself permission to take action in this moment, regardless of what fear comes into my path, right? And so you can actually start on this straight away. You can meditate on this, and it can be as simple as, I had a strategy call last week, and I was telling the person that you can literally just close your eyes and take 30 seconds out of your day, close your eyes and just ask your unconscious mind, can you give me permission? I'm asking you permission that I can take action in the midst of any fear. And that in itself is powerful. It's really, really powerful, and it works tremendously, right? Now, once we've established the permission, or we've got everything's removed to get into that state of mind, from there, we need to take action that's in alignment with ourselves. And so it needs to be congruent and intended action, right? And so from here, if it's not, right, if it's not congruent with us, then we need to, figure out what frames we need to hold that will make it congruent. So what things do we need to believe? What things do we need to give meaning to? What kind of meaning do we need to give in order for us to hold that, to hold that alignment in terms of our goals, right? And taking action in general. Hope you guys are getting this. This is powerful stuff. Right? And now next up is the reason or the reasons, are the reasons why I'm, for completing this goal, are they compelling enough? Because I told you guys about this last week, and I've mentioned this to a few people on strategy sessions, but we've got to be straight up here, guys. We can't bullshit ourselves. We have to be straight up and say, are these reasons enough to create action? If they're not your true reasons, right? And if you're struggling with taking action based on the reasons you have, again, they're not your true reasons. You need to tap into what's truly there. And if there aren't truly reasons there, then it's just that whatever your goal is, it's just not important enough to your life. But the chances are that if a goal is something that's come up into your mind, it is important to you, and you need to dig deeper to find out those compelling reasons to then be able to take action, right? Now, lastly, are you ready to actually make the decision to take action? So we don't just run on autopilot, right? We don't just take action without making a decision. We do actually have to make the decision, and that's when the ownership and the onus is up to us. We actually have to make the decision. Are we going to take action? Well, yes, we are. Or no, we're not. And, at the end of the day, there's either reasons or there's results. So we could sit there and say, well, I didn't make the decision to take action. There's a reason for that. Or I did, and here's my results. So there's either reasons or results, right? And so you get to be in charge of both of those processes. And the end outcome is what it is. You either have the result or you have the reason, right? And lastly, and this is so very important, this covers what we spoke about last week too, is what is the first step that you can take which will let you know that you've acted upon that decision. So this is sort of the convincer to yourself. How do you know that you've started taking action on that decision? How do you know? For a lot of people, it's just a matter of taking that first step, and that convinces you enough in and of itself that you've made movement towards your goal more than you made yesterday. It's like that metaphor of if you get up off the couch, you're further ahead than everyone who's still on the couch because you've taken action, and you're convinced of that fact because you're off the couch, right? And so what is going to be the first step you take? Because as I mentioned last week, when we're looking at a trajectory, let's say this pen is a trajectory, hopefully you can see that, and we've got procrastination on one side, motivation on the other side. Once we take one step, right, one step on this trajectory, we've moved further towards motivation than what we were to begin with. And so it's all about taking that first step, doing that very first thing that's going to get you closer to your goals,